Every century, one person seems to bend money to their will. For the 20th century, that man was John D. Rockefeller. They called him the Oil King, the architect of capitalism, and to some, the most dangerous man in America. But Rockefeller didn't just build an empire. He built a religion of wealth. He truly believed that getting rich wasn't greed. It was a divine duty. At his peak, he controlled more money than the US government itself. His wealth, when adjusted for today, would make even Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos look poor. So how did one quiet, disciplined man turn black oil into a golden kingdom? And what does his story reveal about the dark side of wealth and control? Let's find out. John D. Rockefeller was born in 1839 in a small wooden house in New York. His upbringing was a study in contrasts. His father was a traveling con artist, a fake doctor who sold snake oil and boasted about cheating his own sons to keep them sharp. His mother, on the other hand, was a strict Baptist who preached faith, discipline, and hard work. From his father, John learned the art of negotiation and how to manipulate people. From his mother, he learned the power of self-control. This combination would prove to be lethal in the world of business. Even as a teenager, he was already a budding capitalist. At 16, he was lending money to his neighbors and charging interest. He recorded every single penny he earned in a small black notebook he called Ledger A. He once said, "God gave me money, and I must use it wisely." This wasn't just a saying for him, it was a core belief. Rockefeller didn't chase pleasure. He chased order. To him, waste was a sin, and profit was proof of moral strength. In 1863, the world was discovering a new source of power: oil. Crude, black, volatile, but suddenly more valuable than gold. The Pennsylvania oil rush began, and most businessmen rushed in like gamblers, drilling wildly and hoping to strike it rich overnight. But where they saw a gold rush, Rockefeller saw something else: chaos that needed to be controlled. He knew the real money wasn't in drilling for oil, which was unpredictable. It was in refining it. He partnered with a brilliant chemist named Samuel Andrews, and with a few other investors, built his first refinery in Cleveland, Ohio. While other refiners were sloppy, wasting up to half the crude oil they processed, Rockefeller was obsessed with efficiency. He and Andrews found ways to use every single drop. The gasoline, which others dumped into the river as a useless byproduct, he sold. The tar was used for paving. The other waste products were turned into lubricants, Vaseline, and other goods. Even the waste became profit. He famously said, "The man who does one thing better than anyone else has my respect." And for Rockefeller, that one thing was efficiency. By the age of 26, he owned the largest oil refinery in the city of Cleveland. But he wasn't satisfied. He didn't just want to make money. He wanted to control the entire system that made the money. This is where Rockefeller went from a successful businessman to a ruthless monopolist. He began negotiating secret, under-the-table deals with the powerful railroad companies. He guaranteed them huge volumes of oil shipments in exchange for massive discounts or rebates. But he took it a step further. He also negotiated kickbacks on his competitors' shipments. That's right. Every barrel of oil his rivals moved by rail actually made him richer. Armed with this unbeatable advantage, he used the profits to buy out his rival refineries. His method was simple and brutal. He would approach a competitor and offer to buy them out, showing them his books and proving that he could transport oil far cheaper than they ever could. If they refused, he would simply lower his prices until their business bled dry. Debt or desperation would eventually force them to sell. In a period of just a few months in 1872, he took over 22 of Cleveland's 26 refineries. The newspapers called it the Cleveland Massacre. Rockefeller just called it business. Rockefeller genuinely believed that competition was wasteful and inefficient. "Competition is a sin," he once said, and he built his empire on that rule. In 1870, he officially created the Standard Oil Company. The name was chosen to imply purity, reliability, and perfection, a standard for the industry. But behind that trustworthy brand was a machine of total domination. He built his empire like a living organism. Every company, every manager, every cent was connected and centrally controlled. Nothing moved without his approval. He didn't just own the refineries. He controlled the pipelines, the tanker cars for shipping, and even the factories that made the barrels to hold the oil. At its zenith, Standard Oil controlled over 90% of the entire US oil market. He could set the price of oil for the entire nation. To the public, Rockefeller was a business genius. To his enemies, he was a tyrant wrapped in the language of prayer. He was convinced that God had chosen him to bring order to the chaotic world of business, and he used that belief to justify every ruthless action. By the 1890s, however, the tide had turned. America had grown fearful of his immense power. The public began to see monopolies or trusts as a threat to democracy. The charge was led by a journalist named Ida Tarbell. Her father had been an independent oil producer who was ruined by Rockefeller's tactics. Over several years, she published a devastating, meticulously researched series of articles in McClure's magazine, exposing his secret deals, predatory pricing, and monopolistic practices. The public was shocked and outraged. The government, finally feeling the pressure, moved against him. After years of legal battles in 1911, the US Supreme Court made a landmark decision. It declared Standard Oil an illegal monopoly under the Sherman Antitrust Act and ordered it to be broken up into 34 separate companies. But here's the ultimate irony. That defeat made John D. Rockefeller richer than he had ever been. He still owned a significant portion of the shares in all the newly independent companies that you might recognize today, like Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron. His empire hadn't been destroyed, it had simply multiplied. He'd lost the legal battle, but in terms of wealth, he'd won the war. After conquering the world of industry, Rockefeller turned his attention to a new challenge: philanthropy. He approached giving away his fortune with the same strategic precision he used to build it. He donated more than $500 million in his lifetime, an unimaginable sum back then. He funded the creation of the University of Chicago, the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research, and public health projects that helped eradicate diseases around the world. He said, "If your only goal is to become rich, you will never achieve it." To him, wealth was a tool, a responsibility, not an idol to be worshipped. He lived a relatively simple life and died in 1937 at the age of 97, having fundamentally reshaped the landscape of capitalism itself. Rockefeller's time has ended, but his shadow still defines our world. Today, the oil of power isn't fuel, it's data. And the new Rockefellers aren't building refineries. They're building algorithms. They are centralizing control not over a physical resource, but over information itself. So the real question isn't just who was John D. Rockefeller. The question is who's next? Money, power, legacy, they all fade unless you keep watching. Subscribe and hit that notification bell, because the next story we tell might just change how you see the world. Thank you for watching.